The moon hung low in the ink-black sky, casting an eerie glow upon the rugged landscape of 15th-century rural Spain. The village of Valdelavilla, nestled deep within the dense forests of the Iberian Peninsula, lay silent beneath the silvered night. The air was thick with an otherworldly tension, and the hushed whispers of the wind seemed to carry the promise of impending doom. In the heart of Valdelavilla, the villagers were oblivious to the looming terror that awaited them. Juan, a humble blacksmith, worked tirelessly in his shop, hammering out the red-hot metal on his anvil. His wife, Isabella, was preparing a simple supper in their modest home, while their children played outside in the fading twilight. The tranquility of the village was a facade, a fleeting illusion about to be shattered by an ancient curse that had slumbered for centuries. Deep in the forest, hidden from the prying eyes of the villagers, a pack of wolves gathered beneath the gnarled branches of an ancient oak. Their fur bristled, and their eyes glowed with an unnatural, malevolent light. Among them stood a figure, a man who seemed to blur the line between humanity and beast. His name was Alaric, a cursed soul condemned to roam the earth as a werewolf for all eternity. Alaric's eyes scanned the horizon as he let out a guttural howl, a signal to his brethren that the time had come. The villagers of Valdelavilla were about to face a terror unlike any they could have imagined. As the moon ascended higher in the sky, the peaceful atmosphere of the village began to twist and distort. The air itself seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, causing unease among the animals and casting shadows that danced with unnatural life. In the quiet alleys and rustic homes, the first tendrils of fear began to slither into the hearts of the unsuspecting villagers. At the stroke of midnight, the tranquil night shattered like glass. A blood-curdling scream echoed through the narrow streets, jolting the villagers from their slumber. It was the voice of Marta, a young maiden who had ventured out to draw water from the well. When the villagers rushed to her aid, they were met with a grisly sight. Marta's eyes were wide with terror, and her body convulsed with an unholy rage. Blood dripped from her mouth, staining her once pure white gown. As the horrified villagers tried to restrain her, Marta's body contorted in unnatural ways, and her teeth elongated into razor-sharp fangs. The curse had taken hold. The news of Marta's transformation spread like wildfire through Valdelavilla. Panic seized the village as more and more of its inhabitants succumbed to the curse. The once tranquil streets became battlegrounds, as desperate villagers fought against their own friends and family members turned rabid werewolves. Juan, the blacksmith, armed himself with a makeshift weapon and stood guard at the entrance of his home. Isabella clutched their children close, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and determination. The once united community now teetered on the brink of chaos. The moon hung high in the sky, its cold light revealing the true horror that had befallen Valdelavilla. The howls of werewolves echoed through the forest, mingling with the anguished cries of the villagers. The air was thick with the metallic scent of blood and the acrid stench of fear. As the night wore on, a group of survivors emerged, seeking refuge in the village chapel. The priest, Father Rodrigo, attempted to offer solace and prayers, but his words were drowned out by the growls and snarls outside. The surviving villagers huddled together, their eyes darting nervously at every creak and groan of the old wooden structure. In the heart of the chaos, Alaric, the cursed werewolf who had unleashed this nightmare, reveled in the madness he had unleashed. His eyes burned with a malevolent gleam as he prowled through the darkened streets, leading his pack in a relentless pursuit of the remaining villagers. The survivors in the chapel knew they couldn't stay hidden forever. Desperation gripped their hearts as they whispered among themselves, seeking a plan to escape the cursed village. Juan, driven by the primal instinct to protect his family, stepped forward with a proposal. "We must make a run for it," he declared, his eyes filled with a steely resolve. "Head south, through the forest, and pray we can outrun these beasts until the dawn breaks." The survivors nodded in agreement, their faces grim with the realization that their once beloved home had become a nightmarish hunting ground. With bated breath, they waited for an opportune moment to make their escape. As the survivors slipped out of the chapel one by one, the moonlit night seemed to conspire against them. The snarls of werewolves grew louder, and the shadows seemed to stretch and twist, threatening to expose their every move. The group moved with a cautious haste, their eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of the approaching danger. The forest loomed before them, its ancient trees casting long, haunting shadows in the moonlight. The survivors plunged into the dense foliage, their breaths catching as the oppressive silence of the woods enveloped them. Each footstep echoed like a drumbeat, a constant reminder that they were not alone. The path through the forest was treacherous, with gnarled roots and thorny underbrush snagging at their clothes. The survivors pressed on, fueled by a desperate determination to escape the cursed village. Unbeknownst to them, the werewolf pack closed in, their feral senses keen to the scent of prey. Hours passed, each one more agonizing than the last. The survivors could feel the relentless pursuit of the werewolves, their growls and howls closing in like the tightening coils of a trap. Just as despair threatened to consume them, Juan spotted a glimmer of hope through the dense foliage, a clearing bathed in the ethereal light of the moon. The survivors emerged into the clearing, their eyes widening in awe at the sight before them. In the center of the clearing stood an ancient, moss-covered stone altar, a relic from a time long forgotten. It seemed to pulsate with a mysterious energy, beckoning the survivors to seek refuge within its mystical embrace. Without hesitation, the group gathered around the altar, their breaths coming in ragged gasps. The werewolves, now mere shadows in the periphery of the clearing, hesitated at the edge, their predatory instincts conflicting with an unseen force emanating from the ancient stone. The moon hung directly overhead, casting an otherworldly glow upon the altar. As the survivors caught their breath, a haunting melody echoed through the air, a lament carried by the wind itself. It whispered tales of ancient curses, of the sins that had birthed the werewolves that now hunted the descendants of Valdelavilla. In the midst of the haunting melody, Alaric stepped forward, his eyes locked with Juan's. A silent understanding passed between them, a recognition of the shared fate that had bound them in a dance of darkness. Alaric, the cursed werewolf, halted his pack, his snarls fading into an eerie silence.